I'm sure there's strategizing behind the scenes between Mitch McConnell in the Senate and the Republican leaders in the House. I think this White House has been the most combative since Nixon. And the reason I say this, I was a baby lawyer during the Reagan administration, and I was working on Iran-Contra. Reagan had his own investigation. He worked with Congress. There was a joint House and Senate committee investigation. George W. Bush worked with Congress on various matters. I don't think that this president is following the existing precedents. The last president I know who actually pursued the claim that he would not respond, or his senior officials would not respond to House subpoenas, was Nixon. This particular stance about refusing to honor subpoenas is very aggressive. Typically, these things happen every day up and down Pennsylvania Avenue. They're negotiated. Why? People don't want the American public to think that they are stonewalling, that they're not doing the business of the people.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, Kelsey. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
The weight is in favor of Congress's investigatory authority. Now, his argument will be, well, they don't need it anymore because we have the Mueller report. But his judgment is not the final judgment. We know that from United States versus Nixon. The Nixon case says the president cannot decide on his own. The court is the final arbiter of whether Congress needs this information or it's within its congressional constitutional authority. So I don't see any legitimate ground for the executive to be pushing back against Mueller testimony. Again, it would be on to do that. They'd also perhaps support it with this unitary executive theory that all members of the executive branch are under the president's authority, and therefore he can order him not to testify. As I said, Mueller's response to that, I would expect, would be simply to resign if he sought to testify. My biggest fear is that if it were to go to court and the court were to affirm Congress's authority, that the president would simply refuse. That would be a true constitutional crisis because, in fact, you would have one branch saying to the other branch, the courts, I'm not going to pay attention to you, in which case there is no way to resolve that. The only way to resolve it would be, in fact, impeachment under the Constitution. And that's a very extreme remedy. Issues relate to each other. So he would call up the leaders of the Senate and say, I need the crime bill so that we can get these tax cuts, etc. It could take a while. This is the big problem here, that going to court is a delaying tactic. Well, I think that this most significant consequences to Mr. Barr are really about his reputation. Many people were surprised that he would take the Attorney General position. He is a very well-respected lawyer. He has been through some of these controversies before. And, many people are worried that having taken positions in this administration, they will no longer be able to obtain positions with other persons in their parties. They will be scorned by clients, and therefore they will not be seen as appropriate partners in law firms. This is or he may even be disbarred. These are much more consequential, I think, to significant, powerful lawyers than whatever fine or jail time might be involved.